We're not tired of war. We do not want a break. We want to get ours back, our land, our homes, and our families.
When the 3rd Assault Brigade arrived at its position, they engaged in their first combat encounter on the very first night, which was the beginning of nearly continuous confrontations.
It was almost round-the-clock assaults lasting up to 12 hours at a time. The guys operated without sleep. The enemy was 15-20 meters away.
For months, they defended the city against the overwhelming Russian forces.
During the night, Miron could use up to 2 boxes of grenades. I constantly heard him on the radio saying, "We need grenades, we need grenades."
Among their notable missions is the defense of the so-called Road of Life, which served as a lifeline for supplying the defenders of Bakhmut. At one point, the Russians were entrenched near the road, but the regiment's fighters executed a swift attack, dislodging them from their positions.
We would move 10-15 meters, stand down, and immediately they would hit the spot where we had just been. As soon as we moved a bit more, they would hit the previous spot again. They were constantly trying to knock us out with unguided missiles, 120mm mines and grads.
In early May, the leader of the Wagner PMC, declared by the United States as a transnational criminal organization, acknowledged that the 72nd Brigade of the Russian Army had fled from its positions near Bakhmut.
We have just visited our positions and have heard what is happening. Our army is on the run.
This resulted in the loss of several kilometers of fortifications and 1,000 soldiers for the occupying forces. This is just one of the successful combat operations of the 3rd Assault Brigade. They stepped forward as volunteers to defend Ukraine on the first day. Among them were the veterans of the legendary Azov, so they formed a territorial defense battalion, adopting the name of their former unit. For a period, Ukraine witnessed the coexistence of 2 distinct Azov units, each operating independently and now having different designations. Within a matter of weeks, the battalion underwent restructuring and emerged as a separate Special Forces regiment. In the following days, the newly formed unit, together with the 72nd Brigade, executed an ambush on a Russian tank regiment near Kyiv. Intercepted communications revealed that the occupiers lost nearly an entire regiment. Over the next month, the new Azov, alongside allied units, successfully liberated crucial settlements surrounding Kyiv, including Vasilkiv, Irpin, Bucha, Hostomel, and Moshchun. In January 2023, the Special Operations Forces of the Volunteer Regiment officially became the 3rd separate assault brigade within the armed forces, continuing their active involvement in the most intense areas. The brigade comprises tank, artillery, air defense missile units, and is even equipped with semi-improvised ground drones armed with explosives. The brigade consists of highly motivated fighters, among whom are notable Ukrainian individuals.
We have a very good team. Newcomers quickly become part of the team because we live like little families here now, so to speak.
Nothing brings you closer together and nothing knits you tighter to each other than realizing you could die today. This is probably a very, very strong factor that brings us all together.
Я тоже 300, наводчик 200, мій ход поки не знаю. Що в нього? Що в нього? Быстрей, сука!
The people here are more conservative, I'd say. They are nationalists. They are patriots of their country, and they are ready to change this country for the better.
In under a year, this unit swiftly evolved from infantry trenches near Kherson into a unique combat force, a company of attack drone pilots. Headed by an entrepreneur and an official, this group of pilots has already destroyed hundreds of enemy armored vehicles.
One well-equipped attack drone company is capable of destroying over 100 enemy armored vehicles each month, and we have proved this by our example.
While initially the group created by Magyar did not have a single professional military or drone, the intensity of the war was such that on occasion his unit made 50 sorties per day. The result is an incredible efficiency. For instance, in early June 2023, the group destroyed or damaged 35 enemy armored vehicles in just 4 days. Overall, they have destroyed more than $1 billion worth of enemy equipment. The FPV drones are one of the Magyar Bird's trump cards. However, they also have other vehicles in active service. Among these is the R-18, an octocopter developed by Ukrainian volunteers. It can lift ammunition weighing up to 5 kilograms, which it then drops on the enemy from a height of up to 300 meters. Detailed characteristics of the drone are not disclosed, but it is known that it can operate at a distance of up to 4 kilometers from the operator and spend about 40 minutes in the air. The unit's primary objectives include enemy detection, frontline patrolling, fire adjustment, and launching attacks. Magyar himself shortens this into his unit's motto, Eyes and Sting. He recently demonstrated how well these eyes work. A Ukrainian drone showed one of the symbols of Donetsk, which has been occupied since 2014, the famous 5-star Donbass Arena Stadium, which opened in 2009. As for the Sting, see for yourself. These fighters are also working on technological advancement.
We are actively training a neural network with footage to detect and identify enemy personnel and equipment that remains hidden from the naked eye. Our objective is for it to recognize helmet or machine gun outline.
In the meantime, the soldiers keep an eye on their screens to bring victory closer. Following the counteroffensive on Kherson, they fought for 110 days straight near Bakhmut. They continued to be an invisible terror from the skies for the enemy. This is the story of the Da Vinci Wolves, former volunteers who became one of the most formidable units of this war. Eastern Ukraine, Zaporizhia and Kherson in the south, Chernihiv region in the very north. They're hundreds of kilometers apart, and they're also the hotspots where Da Vinci Wolves unit managed to fight during the very first month of the full-scale invasion. From the very beginning, they rushed into battle in the most dangerous locations, as for them, the war had started long before February 2022. In 2014, Russia seized Ukrainian Crimea and launched a hybrid war in the east. The situation was threatening. In response, thousands of volunteers stood up to defend their homeland, including a teenager named Dmitro Kotyubailo, who had just turned 18. He had neither combat experience nor served in the army, but his courage, motivation, and desire to learn quickly made him a leader. First, he led a squad, and then a company. Soon, this unit was called the Da Vinci Wolves, all because of the call sign of the young commanding officer. Before the war, Dmitro Kotyubailo dreamed of becoming an artist and studied at an arts high school. In 2021, he became the youngest person to receive the highest national decoration, the Hero of Ukraine. Since 2014, the Da Vinci Wolves have been fighting in some of the most intense battlegrounds, including Pisky, Avdiivka, and Savur-Mohyla. After the full-scale invasion, the Da Vinci Wolves emerged as one of the most capable units. They were tasked with the most difficult assignments in different areas of the front line, including the famous Kharkiv counteroffensive and the liberation of Balaklia, Kupiansk, and Kupiansk-Vuzlovy. Da Vinci Wolves were at the forefront of implementing truly modern warfare tactics. They were among the first to leverage commercial drones such as the DJI Mavic for reconnaissance and fire adjustment on the front line. Da Vinci himself always stressed the need for terrain study and thorough planning, leading to the Wolves consistently having the lowest casualties among their peers. Most of the equipment used by the Wolves was captured from the enemy. Initially, they only had 120mm mortars, but they acquired heavier weapons through their battles. Alina Mikhailova, the fiancée of Da Vinci and the head of the Wolves Medical Service, recalled it this way.
Regrettably, we have not yet received any artillery systems, though we repeatedly requested at least M777 howitzers. Instead, we are making use of captured equipment, so-called Lend-Lease, from the Russians.
In 2023, the Wolves have been performing combat missions in the toughest areas, including defending the Road of Life, the only supply route to Bakhmut that is constantly under fire. Regrettably, it was there that one of the tragedies of this war occurred. On March 7, 2023, 27-year-old Dmytro Kotyubailo da Vinci died while helping journalists and soldiers take cover during a shelling. The injuries that da Vinci sustained during the attack proved fatal. His comrades continued to carry on with this mission. Once artists, engineers and teachers, they now serve as soldiers in a battalion with the legendary name that has become renowned worldwide: Da Vinci Wolves.
Release the Kraken!
This phrase found its second life thanks to the mysterious unit, which emerged from nowhere and became one of the fiercest at the front lines. Volunteers who started with regular cars a year ago now operate tanks as a separate reconnaissance unit. True chaos reigned in the first day of the full-scale invasion as Kharkiv suffered massive bombardment. Large enemy columns approached the Ukrainian metropolis near the Russian border from the north. Under those circumstances, a group of gloomy men has gathered in Kharkiv. There were mainly local football fans and their acquaintances. Together, they stood up to defend the city. Among them were recon officers, veterans of the acclaimed Azov, and other experienced fighters. The main Directorate of Intelligence agreed to provide some light arms, a few machine guns and mortars. That's how KRAKEN was born.
In the second half of the day on February 24th, we took up positions at North Saltivka, the most dangerous direction at that time. They were already breaching through it. The 92nd Brigade was holding it, but the defense was already breached. That's where we sent the reinforcements to.
A few days later, they were already dislodging Russian special forces from a school they captured near the city center. In a week, 2 Russian caliber missiles hit the city's defense headquarters, where KRAKEN was also dislocated. According to the official report, 29 people died. Yet the volunteers remained unwavering. By March, they reclaimed Vilhivka village. Further, in April, they liberated the important town of Ruska Lozova. As it was later revealed, the head of the main Directorate of Intelligence, Kirill Budanov, took part in that operation as well. The army officials were so impressed by the mission that a spontaneous formation became a part of the main Directorate of Intelligence and received a new status, a separate reconnaissance and sabotage unit KRAKEN. In 2022, KRAKEN helped liberate more than 20 Ukrainian towns and villages. This number includes such big towns as Kupiansk and Balaklia. One of the main features of KRAKEN is a thorough preparation of every operation. For example, before the assault on Balaklia, Ukrainians learned that Russians lacked power generators. This is when KRAKEN captured the local power plant and turned the power off. Russians found themselves without connection and electricity, allowing the volunteers to successfully attack the panicking enemy. For effective operation planning, KRAKEN actively uses UAVs. That includes the Black Hornet, tiny helicopters that weigh around 20 grams. They are silent enough to approach a human at a 1-meter distance and remain undetected. Moscow has reported eliminating KRAKEN a dozen times. Destroyed? Well, maybe in the dreams of Russian propagandists. KRAKEN keeps fighting in the hottest spots. Strict selection and high motivation to liberate their land made KRAKEN one of the most successful units of this war. Former football fans and volunteers keep fighting. Release the KRAKEN. The time for vengeance has come. Azov, an eminent unit of the Ukrainian army that defended Mariupol for months despite complete Russian encirclement. In May 2014, a group of volunteers formed a police battalion in the southeastern town of Berdiansk. It is named after the Azov Sea, which washes the southeast of Ukraine. In the beginning, this battalion counts 400 people. None of them are paid, most don't have combat experience, and nearly a half are students. They wear balaclavas and go by the call signs instead of names, all because most of them came from the east of Ukraine, often having relatives who live in the cities captured by the Russian proxies. After a month of training, Azov advances toward the captured Mariupol, engaging in urban combat. Motivated Azov recruits fight to their full power. In one day, Azov liberates the city that many of its members call home. A year after the full-scale invasion in 2022, Russian troops have not achieved a single objective and suffered several painful defeats. Great merit in ruining Russia's plans belongs to Azov, which has grown from a volunteer battalion of police to the National Guard Brigade, one of the fiercest combat units of our time. In 2022, Russia planned to quickly capture the Azov shore to form a land corridor to Crimea. It didn't go as planned, as the garrison of 4,500 defenders of Mariupol, half of which were from Azov, became an obstacle.
26 лютого, 10 година ранку, місто Маріуполь. Полк Азов разом з Збройними силами України, Національною гвардією та іншими силовими структурами надійно обороняє місто Маріуполь. Ми будемо битися до останньої каплі крові. Нам не страшні, а не ворожі танки, а не ракетні удари, а не ворожа авіація. Я наказую кожному бійцю полку Азов битися до останнього. Ми будемо знищувати росіян у повітрі, на землі та на воді. Разом до перемоги. Слава Україні!
Eventually, Azov retreated to Europe's biggest metallurgical plant, 3 times the size of New York's Central Park, the Azovstal. After a few months under the siege, Azovstal, named after the sea just like Azov Regiment, remained the only place in Mariupol with the Ukrainian flag waving above it. The defenders of Mariupol ended up in Russian captivity. Putin promised to save their lives, but it was another Russian lie. On the night of July 28th, an explosion happened in the Olenivka settlement prison, where Azov fighters were held. More than 50 people died. In September 2022, 215 soldiers, including 108 Azov fighters, returned home after prisoner exchange. Commanders of Azov were exchanged to 55 Russian soldiers. By an agreement, they will stay in Turkey till the end of the war. The story of Azov continues. Just like back in 2014, motivated fighters stand up to defend their country again. All this time, veterans and recruits keep fighting.
Азов не повертається, Азов нікуди не зникав. Сюрприз. Ми весь цей час воювали. Навіть коли ми були в полоні, ОЗСП Азов воював.
They continue fighting for their dream, the liberation of their homeland from the occupants.
Что мотивирует дальше бороться. Тут, отсюда, 100 километров до моего родного дома, до Мариуполя. По чуть-чуть, но мы идем вперед. Я иду домой.